Hello, everyone. So my name's Patrick. For those of you that don't know, I'm the digital learning designer here at Hood 6. So my job is to come up with new ways of delivering our content. And as a former classroom teacher, I have a great respect for learning metrics and data. In the next 30 minutes or so, I'd like to take the opportunity to talk to you about using learning metrics in relation to cyber awareness training. Now, we have covered the subject of metrics in the past in our previous webinar, which was called What Security Awareness Metrics Should We Be Using? Now, that is available on our website. We can send a link around to anyone that's interested in checking this out. But with that being about 4 years ago, we want to take the chance to refresh everyone on the value of metrics, as well as delve a little further into the science of data analysis. But nothing too heavy, I promise. So, in this webinar, I'm going to cover why we should examine training metrics, but this time I want to focus more on what we should do with the metrics to improve information security campaigns, because it is quite common for metrics to be misused or even misunderstood. And I'll also cover how you can use all this to help achieve behavioral change in your organization. So we're going to discuss some common theories surrounding metrics, and I have some case studies to share with you which we can take learnings from and apply them to our world of cybersecurity. Now, as we've mentioned in previous webinars, a metric is a quantifiable measure that is used to track and assess the status of a specific process. So it's vital to track your training's impact and your users' performance if you want to teach your staff new knowledge and change their behavior. So if you can't measure it, you can't improve it, right? Quantifiable improvements can only be made to something that you measure in the first place. For example, if you want to reduce the number of unreported security incidents, you would need a clear idea of how many incidents are being reported before you begin. Successfully implementing metrics for training will offer you insight into what staff learned from a training program. So, do they know what incidents to report? How employees apply new expertise and skills in their role. So, are they reporting them? Whether the program achieved the original goals. Are all incidents now being reported as we wanted? So training metrics are the methods of quantifiably tracking and validating not only the attainment of your staff throughout the training program, but also the effectiveness of the program itself. Now, learning metrics and the information they provide help to guide future learning and development decision-making, since organizations can identify areas where they need to improve their training methods and make sure their employees are getting the most out of their education. Now, ultimately, this will help you achieve your cybersecurity goals by ensuring that your employees are properly trained and equipped to do their jobs. Now, one of the major benefits of metrics in general is that it allows you to make data-driven decisions. In a previous job, I worked for a company with a sizable customer service team. When they dealt with customers who said they were unhappy with the service, the team was supposed to log a complaint so that it could be dealt with. This wasn't being done, however. Complaints were going unresolved and customers were remaining unhappy. And it was my job to deliver learning to the team and ensure they knew how and when to log complaints. Initial results of the training were encouraging. The staff were engaging well with the material and were able to answer questions when asked. And yet, after the training, complaints were still not being logged, as they should have been. And this led us to wonder what was going on. Okay, we simply didn't know where to go from that point, and it was obvious that more understanding was needed. So we started manually going through the call logs and comparing them to the complaints records, which were stored in a separate system. We noticed that the way each complaint record was categorized didn't line up to its corresponding call log entry. And after raising this within the team, we realized that this mismatch was causing misunderstanding about what calls should be logged as complaints. When going to log a complaint, the agents were often unable to find the right category and assumed this meant it shouldn't be logged. So off the back of this, the company updated the categories and we refined the training. And lo and behold, complaints started rolling in and we were able to resolve our customers' issues. Now, the point of this story, just to bring that back to our world, is to illustrate that the most effective initiatives are data-led. keeping a close eye on the pertinent metric, in this case, number of complaints logged, as well as drilling down into the why, was the reason this problem was solved. So in relation to information security, if you're tracking, for example, the time taken to report security incidents, you must collect and examine metrics surrounding this before commencing a training program. Following this, we provide numerous metrics relating to users' performance within our training, such as completion rates and scores, that you can put together with your existing data and ensure that we get the desired effect, i.e. a decrease in the time taken to report an incident, and potentially off the back of this, a reduction in the number of incidents as well. Prior to delivering cyber awareness training, you may already have key performance indicators being tracked around cybersecurity, and this might give you an idea of what impact the training has had. But you should keep in mind that existing key performance indicators probably track your overall business performance and goals. So you'll likely need to use more specific KPIs geared towards the human side of cybersecurity to evaluate the effectiveness of training. So think about which KPIs you want to use to determine if the program is a success, and think about whether there are other things that you could be measuring that you currently aren't. If there are other metrics that you are particularly interested in, let us know so that we can facilitate this for you by making custom reports, or we could simply point you in the right direction. For example, one utility that's currently available to our clients is the ability to assess the scores for particular questions within tutorials. And this is something that could help you to pick out strengths and weaknesses. Okay. Now, when we've looked at metrics in the past, we've structured the discussion by categorizing metrics into two categories: compliance-led and impact analysis. And whilst that's a good way of doing it, today we're going to come at it from a slightly different angle. We're going to divide our learning metrics into those that track process measures and those that track learner outcomes. So process measures show how much your staff learned and how engaged they were in the training. And metrics to help you track this include the amount of training completed and participant scores. Learner outcomes are what you're hoping to achieve with your training, such as an increase in incident reports alongside fewer consequential incidents. Now, the evaluation metrics you use will depend on your specific training goals and the type of training you're delivering. However, as you will see, it's important to use a mix of both types of metrics to get a well-rounded view of your training's effectiveness. Now, one case study that ties in with this is that was conducted in 2016 by educators Mary Headington and Chad Shaw. They tested the success of gamified e-learning compared to standard classroom teaching in an American middle school. The problem was that their students were not engaged in their learning, and every teacher knows that learner engagement and enjoyment is crucial to taking on learning. A group of students were given access to an educational game called Planet Mechanics to explore concepts such as planetary atmosphere and tilt, etc. Process measures indicated that the students were engaged and participated enthusiastically in the e-learning, i.e. everybody participated in the training. So if we only look at these process measures, we might think, therefore, that this showed the experiment was a great success and the problem was solved. But this was not the case, however. And it was only when analysing the learner outcomes, i.e. their understanding of the topic, that the teachers were able to see that actually the students had not taken on the new knowledge required for them by the syllabus. So they then tried again, this time supplementing the use of e-learning with teacher intervention, and they found that the students achieved a far better understanding of the required topics than with the initial experiment, and that they even performed better than they did when using exclusively classroom-style teaching. So it is worth bearing in mind, of course, that in our case, we're not trying to achieve higher grades, we're trying to achieve increased information security. But that point notwithstanding, this case study can teach us the importance of using a variety of metrics and examining them holistically to get a true picture of the training success. For example, do not simply check whether a learning module in your organization's training course has been completed. Check if the required scores have been achieved and that the requisite knowledge has been taken on board. So, of course, what we at Hut6 want you all to achieve within your training is security in the cyber world and beyond. But it is important to clearly define your specific desired goals and outcomes. And don't be shy. Share them with us so that we know what we can help you with. And then by gathering data throughout the process and carefully analysing real-life results, you can use the metrics we provide you with to enhance your existing KPIs and accurately assess whether the training achieves its goal. Now, ultimately, to get a true reading of the success of your training, you may need to collect additional data that's specific to your organisation, just to check that your staff are taking on their new knowledge with them when they go about their day-to-day tasks. And we can help you with this by offering customized reporting so you can focus on particular groups or specific topics within our tutorials. But once again, I would advise that the best approach will be to use the metrics we provide to augment your other business data. And I wouldn't be deterred from tracking more difficult to define measures, such as employee understanding. Now, Goodhart's law says that when a measure becomes a target, it ceases to be a good measure. The point of which is it's tempting to rely exclusively on objective, quantifiable training metrics that rely on data. But it's also important not to be too much of a purist. Always remember the reason why you're measuring, okay? What it is you're trying to achieve. So just to leave the world of e-learning behind for a moment, I want to give you an example that illustrates my point. About 15 years ago, somebody produced an algorithm designed to predict the results of football matches. The algorithm correctly predicted 12 out of 14 football matches in the 2008 Euro and the 2010 World Cup tournaments. This is 85.7% accuracy. Okay? You might be wondering where you can get your hands on this algorithm to help you with the current ongoing Euros, okay? Because with these results, it may seem like this is a fairly reliable way of predicting the outcomes of games. But the truth is, most of you will probably be familiar with the name of this algorithm. It's Paul the Octopus. Okay, so this algorithm was simply letting an octopus decide which container to open, thus denoting which team would win each game, okay? Now, the point I want to make here is actually quite a serious one, all right? It is dangerous to trust results without understanding the why, because this is how you get into a situation where your data can appear to lie to you. And it's also why good data scientists don't get blinded by ostensibly positive results. They will always delve into the reason for these results. For example, if you're comparing two simulated phishing campaigns, you should be mindful of any difference in the difficulty of the phishing emails used. If users were better at spotting the phishing emails in one campaign, you consider if it was because those phishing emails were easier for your users to spot. Don't view your training as a box-ticking exercise. Use the metrics we provide you and use them to demonstrate how much the staff have learned. Are they now more aware of the threats posed by cyber criminals? Are they more aware of how to keep themselves and your organization safe? And at the risk of repeating myself, don't rely exclusively on our metrics. I would strongly encourage you to combine these with other data. And you can use this to ensure that you're seeing genuine behavioral change. The next thing to think about is using your data to tell stories and communicating these to the people closest to the situation. For example, if it is a customer-facing team that's more vulnerable to social engineering, talk to the manager of this team and the staff of that team. And stakeholders need to know what's expected of them prior to the training. You must define expectations so that they understand the training and learning is not effective unless they're applied and have an impact on the organization. Following the training, you can use the metrics collected along the journey as a simple way of showing the employees the value of the training and the value of the investment made in them. Don't overlook the importance of communicating the results of the training program to key stakeholders. Many groups need to see success and opportunities for progress. For example, the learners' managers will want to see the success for application and impact. And top executives who create the budgets need to see the results for imminent funding decisions. It's really easy to create different user types in the Hut6 LMS, so the particular people can view different reports. This is a really simple way of getting other departments involved. You can save the reports and share them with users. You can even create leaderboards to foster some healthy competition, if that's what you're into. But people love to belong to part of a team. This is human nature. And by communicating with your staff and being transparent with them about what you've measured, you'll reinforce the notion that everyone is working together on the same campaign to increase cybersecurity. Another thing I would recommend is to ensure that you keep track of your team's performance continuously, rather than viewing training as something to be completed and then move on. As we've discussed, easily quantified metrics such as hours spent on learning or test scores do not always reflect the real-life impact of training. So it's not a good idea, therefore, to determine a user's achievements of course learner outcomes purely on the basis of the final grade obtained in the course. If you want to see real behavioural change in your staff, training cannot be a one-time event. Assessment of learning outcomes, therefore, should be a continuous and cyclical process. There are many, many different methods you could use as a basis for a learner outcome cycle, but I found in my research that they all follow a resemblance to the plan, do, check, act framework. This is the same model which features in our business continuity tutorial, for those of you that are familiar with that. But if your goal is to improve password security in your organization, for example, you would first plan the intervention, which we'll assume for this exercise as a form of training program, complete or do the training, and then check if the intervention worked before utilizing the results to act on the basis that this is the new benchmark. And the process then starts again, planning for the next thing to improve. By viewing learning and development within your organization as a cycle, you'll see more behavioral change from your staff. Training results really become apparent when there's a clear goal in mind. As we've discussed, training is a cycle and will continue in your organization continually, well after the first course of training is completed. Saving your reports and using consistent metrics allows you to compare current attainment to the performance of previous years, so that you can be sure that you're setting fair and consistent expectations for your learners. To analyze a training program's overall success, there are a number of different models you can use. So we've got the Kirkpatrick evaluation model, the Anderson model, and the Phillips ROI model. You may want to use elements of each of these, but I feel that the one best suited for the purposes of cybersecurity training is the Kirkpatrick model. So this is one that we're going to look through in a little bit of detail now. The Kirkpatrick model describes a 4-level training evaluation. These will get harder to investigate as we go down the list, but they also, as you'll see, get more valuable. So let's imagine we have a business that's aware that they're falling prey to lots of phishing emails, and they want to guard against this. They implement a training program and use the Kirkpatrick model to evaluate how effective it was. So the first step is reaction, how people reacted to the training. Users either say what they thought of the training, or someone can simply observe their reaction. In our example, let's say the organization needs to send surveys to find out what users thought of their training. The second stage is learning. Are these people taking on the new knowledge? So we can use test scores from the training to see if the users have gained knowledge about phishing and how to guard against it. And of course, if they were using HUT6's training, they'd be able to do this really easily, because the metrics are right there in the LMS, of course. The next step is where things get a little trickier and more valuable. Has the training group's behavior changed? So in our example, we might use company data to check if more people are reporting phishing emails to IT, so those senders can be blocked. You could also use phishing simulations to measure this step, track this performance continually, and consistently share these metrics with staff so they see the value in the training that they're undertaking. And the last stage is results. Are we seeing the desired results we needed for the organization? In this case, are users falling for fewer phishing emails, and is the total cost of phishing to the business dropping? Use this as a benchmark against which future performance will be measured. So as you can see, this model focuses more on the individuals initially before flaring out to encompass business KPIs as a whole later on. And this is the approach I would advocate, despite the fact that there are other approaches that focus a little more on operational and organizational measures that you may wish to investigate if you are implementing other learning and development within your organizations. But I think for our world, for cybersecurity, this is a pretty good fit. So I'd like to round off by summarizing everything we discussed. So let's start with why we should examine metrics. Well, examining metrics enables your organization to make quantifiable improvements and make informed decisions about future learning and business processes. Regarding what to do with the metrics that Hutzik sends, as we have seen, we would recommend that you use the metrics we supply you with to augment your existing company data and examine results holistically, whilst always retaining a true understanding of the data itself so as not to get misled. The Kirkpatrick model is one tried and tested method of doing this. But I think the key thing is define your KPIs. What are you measuring and what is the end goal? Okay, what other KPIs and metrics do you track that are relevant to security awareness training? And if there are others that you want to track, how do you go about this? Don't just communicate these internally. Let us know if there are metrics that we can produce that would help you with this. And yeah, don't be shy. Another thing you can do is drill down into the scores for particular questions so that you know exactly where your strengths are and where your staff can improve. Use the different user types in the Hutzik LMS. Give specific employees viewing permissions for particular reports, which will allow you to get other members of the organization involved. If particular questions or topics are of special significance to HR, data protection, or senior leadership, they can access this information. Set clearly defined goals and don't lose sight of these. Communicate these goals to your staff and share the results to achieve behavioral change. Our LMS makes it easy to pick out trends and share these success stories with your users to show them the value of the training. Now, if you do these things, I firmly believe you'll be making the most of your data. And yes, thank you very, very much for listening, everybody. I really hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. I don't think we've actually had any questions come in. If you want to pop any questions in the Q&A there, or indeed if you feel like you want to speak up at all, don't be shy. Otherwise, if not, I will hand over to Simon next for a bit of a product update.
Yeah, thank you very much, Patrick. Very, very insightful. Really like the sort of science behind metrics and how we can best use them. As promised, this will be quite a short section, just a quick opportunity to do a small product update. These will have, come across your radar if you're an avid fan of Hutzik already. But it's stuff that we've brought out over the last couple of months that could be used more in the product or sort of bring more value to your users in the end. So I'm just going to share my screen quickly. The main thing that I'm going to be focusing on here is our new AI and chatbot tutorial that came out in March 2024. Its focus is primarily on the use of AI and obviously with the increase in prevalence of AI technologies, it's crucial to understand the double-edged sword that those can present, especially those ones that are readily available to your end-user consumer, such as ChatGPT or other large language models. So this new tutorial looks at that relationship between AI security and equips your team with that foundational knowledge that they need in order to navigate those new tools for efficiency, but also they come with various risks, and they also have several inadequacies that need to be highlighted to the user. Otherwise, people can misunderestimate the risk that they pose. So, for example, very basically, when talking to your children about ChatGPT, there's quite a big disconnect between the sense of risk that ChatGPT has and that of a normal adult giving advice. And a child or a sort of early teen might not understand the difference between those two, and so might ask it for advice on certain privacy or risk situations, like should I meet someone in the park? And ChatGPT has a very rose-tinted view of that sort of action, whilst a lot of adults might be a little bit more skeptical. By the end of that tutorial, users will have a solid understanding of where it can fit into an organization's security framework, the inherent limits of that technology, and if you haven't, as an organization, included AI use in your security policies, this is a good tutorial to accompany that sort of change that you can drive across your organization, so that your users know how much is permitted, what to do, never to put sensitive company information into a large language model unless it's specifically sandboxed and isolated for your organization's use. And that's a sort of interesting tutorial. It's about 15 minutes to 10 minutes, and it fits into our current course. If you don't have access to it already, do get in touch with our customer success team and think about introducing a policy alongside that. Secondly, we're introducing course completion certificates. So once a user has completed a course, where it's enabled, then there's a link on their Hut6 dashboard that stores all of their course completion data for that individual. So it is cryptographically signed using a QR code, which means they can always be validated even if the user leaves the organization and their data is deleted. It allows them to have a record of what training they've completed, and it has that gamification side of things, whilst also being a useful asset if they move around. Thirdly, if you haven't seen them yet since their release last year, we do have 6 cyber shorts on our website, which are designed for consumption by the general public. We see them as 90-second long best practice videos for family and friends. And we built them because we had a lot of requests from users saying, can I get my wife, my children, my husband, my aunt, my grandfather onto this platform just to give them this tutorial or this tutorial for specific needs that they had to best communicate to their friends or family why they needed to behave more securely, or if they've just been scammed, etc. We've been shouted out on various socials by the South Wales Police Department for them. So you can take a look on our website if you do like them, or if you work in a field similar to education where there are, for example, a large student body that also poses risk to your organization, but you don't have mandate over training for them. They're very good short-form content to engage those people about risks and give them a way to improve security in their personal life. I'd urge you to consider putting a blog post out about them to sort of emphasize this can be a personal security matter that you can share with your elderly relatives who might not understand security and privacy settings or might not understand what a phishing email looks like. It's very short form and there's no questions, it's just information. Very good asset if you're looking to engage beyond your user base into their personal lives. And then finally, in November last year, we released a cyber companion alongside the pre-comms package, which is a guide document to help you run the most effective campaign you can. Do take a look at it. As Patrick said, we always want to know what feedback you have for it and how we can improve our resources. So if there are additional metrics you'd like to see, additional advice or guidance that we could publish, we'd love to hear from any of our clients or even potential customers where they think our service could improve. And then finally, I would just second shout out what Patrick said, is that a feature that sometimes gets overlooked in our platform is the user role feature. If there are stakeholders within your business that you think could benefit from access to the metrics without being able to change or edit the administrative side, then there is that feature already in existence and you're able to set that up from within your user management page, or our customer success team would be happy to help you with those. So thank you so much for your time today looking at metrics. If you do want to ask more about how we think about metrics at Hut6, or get a sort of personal analysis for your organization about where you think we should be going, we can have a conversation and talk about new features we could bring to the product for that. So please don't hesitate to get in touch with me. So you can see my emails on the screen, or our customer success team at support@hut6.io. And thank you very much for your time. I hope that it has been insightful, showcases where we're going with the product. You're we're finishing ahead of schedule here, so everyone's got time to crack on with their days. And I hope that you will join us for our future webinars in a couple of months or so. And thank you very much.
Thanks, Simon. Thanks, Patrick. It's great.
Cheers, Chris.
Thank you.